I've always been a lover of vampires.
It's all sex and death and rock and roll, and you know, it's all those things that you've come to love.
It was all about training the actors, getting them into the wire, getting them comfortable. Most of our cast were pretty physically fit. They were all working with trainers.
The vampires can all leap at superhuman levels or fly at times. They have super strength, in effect. Akasha has powers that they don't have. So a lot of what we'll be seeing is a combination of prosthetics, CGI, and a lot of wire shots.
Figuring out, you know, how does a vampire take off? How does a vampire land? You know, that was a lot of trial and error.
Basically, it's attached to your waist, this rig there's either 2 wires that come up on either side, or 1 wire that comes from behind your back. And depending on the move, like the 2 wires obviously limits you to like, if you got 1 wire here, you can do twists and turns. So sometimes they'd spin you up and they'd spin you sideways, and you'd have to turn so that you could turn. And say the camera was there, you'd turn right into it. We did work for like a month. We'd have an hour every day, and we'd just fly up on these things, and it was great. I loved it.
Stuart and Vincent were particularly good at it. You know, they're very adroit. A lot of the best visual effects in the film are in-camera bits of acting.
Amazingly enough, we didn't have to do as much work. It was the stunt people who were they were incredible. They were pulling all these wires that were lifting us up. And it was amazing because we did a test one day, a camera test for the jumping to see if we could do it. And I had one person who was, 40 feet away, and I was going to bite their neck. So I'm 40 feet away, they lift me up, I fly over to her, I literally land right beside her and bit her neck. And it was just incredible that you could do that. You could actually, they were so, but it wasn't really us. We just had to learn how to land properly. They had to just do all the pulling. So it was really a tribute to the stuntmen, basically, how good the things were.
Anything complicated can be broken down into parts that are manageable. So if you have a good team, which we do, you can start shooting, say for example, a vampire who is going to come flying in the air on wires, and then he's going to get zapped. Okay, well the zapping isn't going to happen here, it's going to happen in post-production. And so all you need is just to get him up in the air and do that, and you have to trust that all the rest of it's going to be there. So you sort of do it in pieces on faith.
The ancients have decided to turn on me and kill me, so that's where all these disgusting little marks come from. I've been bit. It takes about an hour and a half for the whole 9 yards.
What we're doing is applying a little prosthetic for bite wounds that Lestat has just bitten Akasha. And this is quite a serious bite, not a gentle one. He's now trying to suck the blood out of her. So we've just applied the prosthetic. We're going to colour this in a minute, a bit of blood on it, and we're done. Bits of Aaliyah's body, and then from that sculpture we make a mould, and then the foam is actually made like making a souffle. It's beaten up in a mixer and then poured into the mould and then baked in an oven. And then when these are used, they're used once and then thrown away. A lot of work before we get here. With rubber, it's a strange thing because the rubber itself would look like rubber if we made it the same colour as a person's skin. So we actually have to cheat the camera, and we actually make the rubber pieces more red, and then the camera believes it's seeing a bit deeper into the skin tone. If we actually make up a prosthetic to match a skin, it will come up quite yellow on camera. So it's all a question of just knowing what colours come up where. out of this and then blood.
That is enough, Lestat. That is enough, Lestat.
My name is Greg McMurray. I'm the visual effects supervisor for Queen of the Damned. The vampire immolation in our story was designed to start around sort of the heart and the blood and her power over their blood, because all vampires share Akasha's blood. In the bar sequence, these are just young punk vampires that hang out there that all think they're pretty hot until they meet Akasha. We knew we were making our vampires catch on fire, and as we shot each one, we threw a little interactive light around the room. But as we started putting all these big elements of actual flame and fire on each individual vampire, we had to add a lot more to the room that we never really anticipated. And by adding all these little techniques and reflections and kicks off of different objects in the room, it made the stuff that we added months later look like it had always been in the room.
In the books, the vampires can travel so fast that you couldn't even see them. So we actually slowed them down and had a trail going behind them as if they were so fast that your eye couldn't catch up.
In this piece that we're looking at now, it's one of the very early tests that we got into. We filmed a stuntman on wires standing in one side of the room, and then filmed him landing at another side of the room. And we went through a lot of permutations, some just where he faded out, some that he fades out in a series of what we called acid trails, just rippled images. So the principle of the vampire flight or the vampire speed was that if the vampire only moved a short distance, it would barely fade out at all. If he moves a great distance, there would be a big period of time in the middle where he would be completely invisible. Some of the tests we went through was to actually show the vampire's body maybe coming apart. We went through many different processes until basically we came up with this process that just each frame just slightly faded out more and more and more. So Don, this is the plate we're going to work on today. And I know you've already removed the wires and created some elements. Why don't you show me the elements that you've made for us on this piece?
Well, this is the shot with the wires removed. We've created mats to lift out each character, because each one comes from a different direction. After we get the clean mat off of them, we can create elements that give the trail effect, and then bringing them all together so that each one has trails.
Greg McMurray built a robot that would travel down a street, and as the camera slowed down, so everything started to go faster by it, it had to pick up speed.
It was really just a dolly that could start in a real-time move and then slow down till the point where it was moving so slowly that we could hardly see it move at all.
Hi, I'm Andy MacDonald. I'm a compositor on the film, work at Creo Visual Effects, and working here on the end shot on Queen of the Damned. Well, we have the original green screen, and we had the original background. What we did is we stabilized that background and did a little time warp, and then just did a basic composite, making sure that they stayed in contact with the ground. We did a few little experiments, keying off of certain images in the background. We created some sort of graphic elements that we combined into the shot. We just took like a piece of the clock and kind of a piece of their shadow and pulled them through. We also made a few flares, and actually a few of the flares we just got a video camera and got some mag light, and there you have it.
I think it's quite a succinct image to say, these two characters walking off into eternity.
One of the things I found exciting about doing this particular vampire movie is I wanted it to be a movie that had effects in it that we could believe would have happened and wouldn't have necessarily shown up in the newspaper. I wanted people to walk down a dark alley and look over and say, that could be a vampire bar over there.